Hello, good evening, everyone. Being part of VHS team and also being part of Digital Security Association as a secretary, it gives me an immense pleasure in inviting the eminent speakers and the participants for today's program. I would like to use this opportunity to give a quick intro about Digital Security Association of India, or DSAI. DSAI was formed 4 years ago, and the objective of this organization is to educate people from various walks of life about digital technologies and how to get maximum benefit out of this same while minimizing the threats involved. In the past, DSAI team has conducted programs at various prestigious institutions, including IIT Madras and Anna University. DSAI team continues to educate financial professionals such as bankers and law enforcement agencies, including police, and we continue to do it every year. Please visit www.desai.in to know more about the organization. Second organization, VHS. I'm sure everyone here is aware of Virat Hindustan Sangam, or VHS. So it is a non-political intellectual platform which educates the youth of this country on heritage and culture. In addition to that, law, economy, governance, and technology. The ultimate goals are to rediscover the true identity of our Dharma, project the correct history of our land, help the future generation in achieving balance between materialism and spiritualism, promotion of Sanskrit as the universal link language considering its scientific importance, and Ram Rajya as a model of governance because of its fundamental aspects of inclusiveness and integrity. We have the following speakers today: Dr. Subramanian Swamy, Madam V.S. Chandralekha, and Sri V. Rajendran. Let me introduce the first speaker, Mr. V. Rajendran, the chairman of Digital Security Association of India. He was a banker by profession who earned his law degree after his retirement. He is an advocate specialized in cyber law. He has authored books on IT security and cybercrime and fraud management. He has personally conducted cybersecurity programs for police officials, and he has also been consulted by many judiciary officials on critical cybercrime related cases. I welcome Sri Rajendran to speak on digital security recent developments. Over to you, sir.
Ramesh, can you start now?
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's a good opportunity. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been looking forward to this. In fact, I thought Ramesh will extend it a little more. In fact, this is a golden opportunity for me, a lifetime occasion, and something I would like to cherish for a number of years to come. Addressing a passionate subject of mine in the august presence, that is virtual presence of Dr. Swamy. Good evening, Madam Chandralekha and other dignitaries. In these days of digital India and also its initiatives, we often felt, especially as a cybercrime lawyer and information security professional, I have personally felt that India needs a lot of awareness. A lot of awareness. Awareness basically is the key. Especially when we speak about technology penetration, the efforts taken by Indian government is laudable. We should not do it at the cost of creating awareness. As a consultant and advocate, almost every day I receive complaints from poor, hapless netizens on how they lost money in the cyberspace, sometimes due to their revealing the OTP and some carelessness on their part or lack of awareness on their part, and rarely, occasionally, due to none of their mistakes, but a pure technological glitch or a technological attack like a password theft in a network, a denial of service attack in a bank server, or a network-based attack somewhere else. In all such cases, in cyber crimes, by the time the victim realizes that he has lost money or his lost reputation or any such victimization has taken place, the stakeholders like the investigators, police, banks, or network service providers, they take some action, the money is already gone and become irrecoverable. Where does the fault lie? I would say it's a multi-pronged failure, right from the victim's lack of awareness and right up to the level of bank officials, network or internet service provider, the police, advocate, judiciary, and of course, the government or the lawmakers. Basically, crime, they say, is as old as human being. Behind every crime, it is often said that there is a fraud triangle or a crime triangle. One, the need or the greed. Two, rationalization or a justification by the criminal for his activities. Like every film hero does it on screen, it is justified. When a villain does this, it's a crime. Like, okay. The three is opportunity created by the victims. That is, the three words need or greed, rationalization, and opportunity. They together constitute a crime. Of these three, need or greed are as old as human being and will exist as long as human beings do exist and hence cannot be prevented. Rationalization is, of course, psychological. Let us not concentrate much about it. Now comes opportunity. It is the opportunity that deserves our attention in webinars like this, in awareness initiatives like this. In all my lectures and sessions and interactions with the various training academies and the public everywhere, I've always found that when you give no opportunity, no victimization takes place. So don't give any opportunity, be very careful. That is the essence, hallmark of cyber crime or cyber law awareness. Here is where I wonder whether digital India or digital data here is actually safe as it should be or as we think it is. Let us spend a couple of minutes on the Indian scenario. India often takes pride in saying that the CEO of Microsoft is an Indian, CEO of Google is an Indian, the top brass of many such firms in the US, elsewhere, UK, New Zealand, or of course, Singapore and Dubai, they are all Indians or of Indian origin. But do we have our own operating system? We still use the Windows, Unix, or Linux extensively. Our own operating system, prestigiously called BOS, that is Bharat Operating System Software, developed by our own CDAC, Center for the Development of Advanced Computing, which was spoken about by none other than the late illustrious President Dr. Abdul Kalam, was never marketed by India. Why? I do not know. Nobody knows why. With such a tough competition for Windows, the BOS developed by India, with no operating system of our own, no search engine of our own, no social networking site of our own, no hardware produced in India, no hard disk produced in India, nothing which can be called Indian products, we still boast that we are an IT superpower. I do not know why. But the data is ours, ironically. I am quite often reminded of the famous Raj Kapoor song of 1950s. मेरा जूता है जापानी ये पतलून इंग्लिस्तानी सिर पे लाल टोपी रोसी फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी. Perhaps if Raj Kapoor, Mukesh or Shailendra, Shankar Jaikishan, the composers were alive, they may have to reword this song as my OS is from the US, my hard disk is from Japan, my router is from China, the cables are from Korea, speaker is from Taiwan, but the data is mine. The data is India. In the long run, perhaps the government of India should seriously consider this, that is to have our own operating system or propagating our own operating system which is already developed, having a competition for networking site like Ku and our own mobile handsets manufacturing unit, routers, etc. If such an environment emerges, we can be in a commanding position and insist that Twitter and Facebook or WhatsApp should comply with our guidelines of having an office here in India, a 24/7 physical contact address, and a grievance redress contact officials here in India physically present. After all, these are the basic requirements that any country will need from a business entity wanting to business in the country. We are in a situation that such a simple requirement also gets debated. People ask me why government should do it, why we should do it, why we should insist on all these things. These are all very simple things, basically. Another area of a major concern that I have been speaking about of late is cryptocurrency, bitcoins. While the underlying technology in bitcoins is a blockchain, which is an operating system, the cryptocurrency, that is Bitcoin, is something that is used mainly for illegal transactions, like ransomware, corruption money, black money, ill-gotten money, hawala transactions. Being a currency, in fact, we should not call it a currency at all, since RBI is the only one which can issue a currency as per Indian laws, and RBI does not support it, and hence it is not a currency. in that meaning of the term, but still people prefer to call it currency. This so-called currency is not monitored, not under the control of any regulator like RBI or SEBI or anything, and can never be accounted for. RBI issued a circular advising banks not to deal with cryptocurrencies and bitcoins, but this circular was struck down by the apex court on the grounds of disproportionality. Strangely, RBI or the finance ministry did not appeal against this Supreme Court verdict. And the cryptocurrency Bitcoin is quite powerful. Their lobby is quite powerful. They speak as if it has been approved in India because Supreme Court has struck down the RBI circular. So the lobby says Bitcoins have come to stay in India. It is approved, whereas it is not exactly legally approved. Even now, I would say the simple legal remedy is still possible. The government can pass a notification bringing this under the exempted list of Information Technology Act 2000. Information Technology Act 2000 says it does not apply to immovable property, property registration, power of attorney, trust, will, etc. By just adding one word, cryptocurrencies, government can say that cryptocurrency is not recognized under Information Technology Act. So this is not a valid e-record. It loses the recognition of an electronic record. So this is a possibility that the government can seriously consider, may explore if the government seriously wants to regulate the cryptocurrencies. Okay, that apart. Let us come to data privacy. Data privacy in India is another major area of concern. The US, the UK, in UK there is a GDPR, everywhere there is something of this sort, whereas in India we don't have it. The Personal Data Protection Act, it was drafted by the Sri Krishna Commission sometime in 2017 July, and then a draft bill was presented by him. It was passed in the Lok Sabha in 2019. Then in the previous India government, it was not passed as an act. Somehow, fortunately, the same government came and with the same law minister now also, but still in this Lok Sabha also, after 2019, it is still being debated. It has now been referred to a Meenakshi Lekhi panel, MP's panel headed by Meenakshi Lekhi. And it is, they are the process. I'm pretty sure, or rather I'm confident that it will be passed as an act. The act provides for setting up a data protection authority, DPA, as a regulatory body like RBI, TROI, SEBI, etc., with offices pan-India, branches across the India. Expectedly, some vested interests from industry bodies are lobbying either to delay the passing of the bill as an act or to dilute the provisions to suit, of course, their present status of lack of accountability, irresponsibility towards India. Had this act been passed, I can even say a simple step of the government guidelines that came into effect last week, 26 May 2021, applicable for intermediaries, would have been comparatively easier. Now, the controls in India, the difficulty to implement. In our country, much more than the absence or inadequacies of law or guidelines, it is the judicial process which is a major impediment. More than severity of laws or simplicity of procedures, it is the certainty of punishment which is the deterrent. So, we do not need severity of laws or multitude of laws, or what we need is simplicity of procedures or the certainty of punishment. Before the government comes out with any guidelines, it is the media and many vested interests that make it a big issue and portray it as an assault to a freedom of expression. When feature films for theatrical release in theaters, cinema houses, have a censor certification process, the print media has a press council, or the broadcasting media also has a self-regulating mechanism. It is the OTT and the entire internet media which is completely uncontrolled. Internet is an uncontrolled beast. Any effort in the direction of bringing some regulation and accountability in this sector is often met with huge criticism, as if it's an assault. The freedom of expression is curtailed like that. In fact, it is very pertinent to note that the just retired Chief Justice, Honorable S.A. Bobde, on the day of his retirement, exactly on that day, evening by about 5:30, in a very, very short 1-minute interview, he said that he considers the most abused freedom of India is the freedom of speech. He said the freedom of speech is the most abused freedom in India. Very remarkable, significant words. With these words, let me conclude. Thanks for the opportunity. Like everyone here, I am also very eager to listen to Dr. Swamy. Thank you, Ramesh. Thanks, Madam. Thanks, Dr. Swamy, for the patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendran sir. Our next speaker is Madam V.S. Chandralekha. She is a former IAS officer and she is state president of VHS Tamil Nadu. She joined IAS in 1971 and served as the sub-collector of Chengalpattu and Cheran Madevi from 1973 to 1975, and as a general manager, Civil Supplies Corporation and deputy secretary of food from 1976 to 1980. From 1980 to 85, she served as a district collector, first of South Arcot and then Madurai. She served as the director of rural development from 1985 and 1988, and chairman of Women Development Corporation Tamil Nadu from 1988 to 1990, and chairman and MD of TIDCO from 1991 and 1992. So the main reason we have asked her to speak on the topic of security of women and children in the cyber world is she has been voicing out for the rights of the women. She also talks about security and safety of women, children for a very longer period, in fact for decades. So I believe she's the right person who can talk about this in detail. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ramesh, and namaste to everyone. VH is very happy to host this program along with the Digital Security Association of India. Digital transformation is the most important and a significant development of the century. But it also has many challenges and threats which we need to look into. Today, what is happening, many young women and girls, they have fallen a prey to the use of the internet. There is a cyber harassment, which is primarily in the form of unwanted sexual advancement. And there is a cyber stalking, where victims' movements across internet is watched and abusive postings are made, messages in their bulletin boards, in chat rooms, discussion forums, and emails they get. Though this happens mainly to women, the pedophiles also use this to harass the innocent children. There is also cyber information of the victim. And many social platforms allow users to mark their photos with metadata. This leads to retrieval of personal and sensitive data by unknown, unscrupulous persons. Cyber pornography, where women don't know what action of this is being recorded, is also leading to a lot of problem and psychological problem for women. Children are most vulnerable and they are not aware of the risks. They are much better than the parents in navigating the internet. The digital competency among generations is a serious issue. Parents are not aware of what children are doing. And with lockdown, many of the children with the online classes, children are spending most of the time online. And a few years back, there was this blue whale challenge that led to many of the children physically hurting themselves also. Not only women and children, but also without digital literacy, senior citizens are also duped. Most of them don't know how to cope up with the mobile and internet banking. And when they approach others to help them, they get defrauded because that OTP is taken away by that person and then he cheats. They lose their life's savings and they don't know what to do. So I would like to know now, what is it that we can do to see how to prevent this? Because I am not a technical person, so I am looking at it more from the person who is using the internet. So I would like to say, what are the things we have to do for preventing? Don't share your passwords and don't share your photos or your private information in public domain. Avoid sharing daily routine. This is happening. This leads to kidnap, etc. of the children particularly, because the aggressor knows where the person is at the point of time. So better to block unknown and unwanted contacts. And don't add unknown persons to your Facebook, Messenger, and other platforms. Verify your personal settings. Don't download apps which ask for your GPS location, your contacts, photos, etc. Have antivirus and anti-malware softwares installed. You educate your family members. I think this is very important, particularly senior citizen, on what they should do and what they should not do. And teach children early about the threats and not to share their personal data and their location. You have to monitor the use of internet by your children by installing spy software and have a tab on their profile and their friends. And any crime takes place, any cyber crime, please don't hesitate to report to the authorities so that action could be taken against those who are involved in this. Now, at a government level, what could be done? A national child online protection strategy, which has both legal and regulatory framework, should be thought of. And empower the vulnerable group like the women, the children, and those who are in the rural areas who are not much educated through digital literacy as a minimum how they would be they can use their smartphone to get their things done. And promote and develop gender sensitive apps and teach women how to make use of the internet to have digital entrepreneurship and to see that they are empowered. This is all I want to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity given. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So the most important talk of the day. So for that I would like to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. I believe these 3 words are enough to make the whole world know about his credentials. Still, I shall do the formality. Dr. Swamy is a member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and a former Union Minister of Commerce. And he's an eminent author, economist, statistician, legal activist. He was a professor at Harvard University, and I can keep on going with more and more credentials of his. So, however, in the interest of time, like you all, I'm also eager to hear his speech. So I conclude my introductory speaker introduction here. Over to you, sir. He will be speaking on India digital security, concept, scope, and threats.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ramesh Sethuraman. And I have to congratulate the Digital Security Association of India, which is headed by Mr. Rajendran and Ramesh as a secretary. So this is something which is required. There's no such thing as unrestricted rights in any democratic society. I'm not talking about communist society which has no rights at all, but democratic rights where they speak about freedoms and then fundamental freedoms and put it into the constitution. I would tell those people who talk about freedom of speech, freedom of action, freedom of employment, all these freedom of religious worship, please go and read the constitution. With every fundamental freedom, there is a proviso that this fundamental freedom is subject to reasonable restrictions. For the freedom of speech, the reasonable restriction includes that you will not talk about the disintegration of the country. You will not be allowed, it's not a fundamental right to advocate sedition. It's not a fundamental right to advocate violence. So all these are something which none of us, we are all half baked in the common man's world, and we talk in these bombastic terms of fundamental right. Fundamental right of information is also subject to reasonable restrictions, and fundamental right to worship is also subject to reasonable restrictions. Subject to what reasonable restrictions? Morality. You can't preach an immoral religion. Then public health and public order. You can't say that, Kali wanted my son to be head chopped, so therefore I chopped it. No, that's not allowed in Indian under the Indian Constitution. Same thing with the public order. If you say something religious and that creates a disorder in the country, then you don't enjoy freedom of religion. If I go before a masjid and say that Islam is bogus and Muhammad the thief, well, that's not fundamental right to speak. That will be something which will attract action. So the same thing today, we have this digital world that is fast developing, and it is going in all kinds of directions, as Mr. Rajendran pointed out. For example, on Bitcoin, in cryptocurrency. I mean, the cryptocurrency takes us back to barter days when there was no government involved. Afterwards, when the currency came, whether it was a gold currency or then later on paper currency, there was a government in the picture. So therefore, what this Bitcoin and other things are planning to do is all bilateral. The government doesn't come in unless it finds a way into the system. So that's another area where we have to be very particular and make sure that we do not allow freedoms to be totally free of reasonable restrictions. Restrictions have to be there, but they have to be reasonable. And who decides what is reasonable? The courts of law decide. They base it on the Constitution. So now when I come to this question of digital security, I have chosen three aspects of it. Mr. Rajendran spoke about some aspects of its misuse and so on. I am going to first of all speak about the concept and how much leeway we are going to allow for this concept. And then I will speak about the scope. How far will this cyber world go? Are we going to ultimately become just sitting at home like vegetables while robots and artificial intelligence and all these things will do everything, and all we do is go to the lunch table or dinner table or breakfast table and come back and sleep, and whatever you want to do, you dictate to a computer, and then artificial intelligence takes over, and then it gives an articulate argument. All kinds of imaginations is now going on, but just as in the past, imagination turned out to be reality. Nobody ever thought that it was an imagination for, at least, I'm not talking about Ramayana, Mahabharata, I'm talking about this period of the last 200 years. Nobody thought an aeroplane will become now to a point where you can even go to the moon and through a rocket and so on. So imagination ultimately led to reality. So here also we can imagine, but we must be sure that it can be converted. So what I would say, this being the most important topic of this 21st century, how will we go about this? Now, the concept is clearly technical, and in a sense for the ordinary man is mind-boggling. It's very difficult to understand. So you need to create a cadre which is able to understand the technical aspects of it and fairly give it to the political authorities so that they can bring in the required legislations that restrict by reasonable restrictions. So that is a problem today on vaccination. We don't know who's selling us what. We went for this Oxford thing, and now it's world over, including the two countries which are sponsoring it, UK and Sweden. They have put restrictions on its use, and United States has not agreed to it. European Union has not agreed to it, and now there's suits have been filed in the United States for damages. So, but we have got it because there's no one to assess it. I'm in the Health Committee of Parliament, and I found that the Covaxin, which is perhaps the safest vaccine for this coronavirus in the whole world, it has hardly any fatalities. I mean, they were produced one, but then they found they couldn't link it. In the case of the Covishield, that is now called that Oxford AstraZeneca, that has already got 300 demises. People have died, and so therefore, this is an area where, as we advance into more and more science, they are dangerous areas. So now we had a taste of this cyber security when China, and this is not being denied by China also, actually closed down the electricity of everybody in Bombay. I don't know whether you remember this incident which happened, I think, 3-4 months ago, where the entire Bombay went dark because the electric grid was interfered. Rogue Russians have interfered with the electronic management of the flow of crude oil right from the southernmost part of the United States to right up to Virginia, and there was suddenly no crude oil available for refining, and for the refineries on the way, and that was done also by cyber technology. So we are having a situation where our own existence can be threatened. You can have a virtual shutdown. You can have a plane flying and its electronics failing. So the scope is now so vast for warfare, and any country which takes an advance moves faster than others, it can impose on another country. Like China is today threatening us with all kinds of cyber war. So therefore, this becomes extremely important. How do you prevent the security to be breached in the cyber world? So in other words, cyber security means, number one, it means secrecy, how to maintain secrecy, purity, integrity. And cyber security therefore has to be defined as the technique of protecting computers, networks, programs, data from unauthorized access or attacks aimed for selfish exploitation. That may be by governments, that may be by private individuals. So in this regard, we have to understand the motives for why cyber security is breached. One is clearly for extracting ransom. People enter your cyber establishment, and then they start threatening, give us so much money or we are going to shut you down. They did it in the case of the Russians, the oil transmission in the United States. But the Americans, with their scientists, were able to undo it, so there was no question of giving ransom to anybody. But the fact is, this kind of thing can happen. You can tomorrow have a situation where some people shut down the entire electricity in Delhi, all your computers down, everything down, airports closed, everything, it's just, and then make a ransom demand that we won't let it reactivate till you may so much in such and such numbered account in such and such place. So the kind of crime under breaching cyber security is an enormous factor, which will threaten your civilization. It's a civilization threat. So now first is this question of getting a ransom. That's the simplest part of cyber security insecurity. Then you have how to damage your competitors by a number of ways, by planting malicious software in their computers. You can do it by by phishing, as it's called, PHISING. It's called phishing, you know. Sounds a little obscene, but so phishing is a term which is used for the practice of sending fake or fraudulent communication to appear as if it is a respectable source that has sent you that. You can get this. I mean, the most elementary part is the photo management. You know what is called photo something, where you create a photo between a politician and Dawood Ibrahim, both drinking whiskey. You know, this morphing of photograph.
Photoshopping.
It's a huge thing, you see. So now therefore, this is called disinformation. So we have now a new name. It's not new in the sense that the intelligence of United States, Russia, Soviet Union, now there's no Soviet Union, but that time there was a Soviet Union. They have used the word, the Russians call it active measures, the Americans call it as disinformation. You have information, misinformation, and the last 20 years ago, the Americans invented a new word called disinformation. Disinformation is the information which looks real, looks genuine, looks, according to your common sense, but it is totally made up. So that is an art which now in this new cyber world is very easy to do. And therefore, they can have more photos, more letters, bogus letters, all these, and spread all over. By the time you start denying, so much damage would have been done. So you see that it is no more a technical subject or of concern only for engineers, electronic engineers. The whole society now is dependent on your ability to discipline this cyber world. And so how do we go about it? That is the real question. So in that, I have found 4 ways in which this can be done. One is what they call now as application security in the cyber world, which is taking countermeasures. These countermeasures are, putting in software which protects you, and it doesn't allow the input parameter validation, as it's called. So when you put in, you need password, this thing, that thing. The most elementary is the password, but so many other things. And then you will have user authentication, then session management parameter manipulation, then exception management, and auditing and logging. So these are things that have been now developed. But the real question is that you have to ensure that your application design, development, deployment, upgrade, maintenance is all top quality. So it's not a simple thing to go into the cyber world, because once you get in, you're going to have a hard time getting out. So you must have these measures. So one is this countermeasures. So let us, when you're studying cyber security, let us find out what countermeasures you can build into the system, which will immediately alert you when there is an attempt to penetrate. Then information security, which means that the unauthorized person in an institution where you're using the cyber world doesn't get access. To get access, you have a series of measures that you have to have, so that the access is restricted to those only who need to use the cyber technology, and that there should be people who have to be checked out completely. Then you have to have what is called as a recovery strategy in case something happens. How do you move in? So like a doctor, he has already got examples of what you do in influenza, what you do in coronavirus, what you have to do in heart failure, or heart attack. All these are now where we have already built up a library of how to deal with it. And therefore, here also you'll have to build up a library, and there you will have to develop what is called as a recovery strategy and the risk assessment of your system. What is the extent of risk? And so how much will you put into it? How much data you will put into it? Data stealing is now a very well known. It's going on. Hacking. This whole hacking business is only data stealing, and therefore this is another very aspect. And of course, the most important to develop, which we are already in medical sciences and big soup about, antivirus. It's not the same thing as the virus we have in our physical medical world, but the virus which goes and completely destroys the system. That virus is a class by itself, and it's unfortunately called virus, but it is it's something. It's a kind of a bug that you put in, and it then starts meddling with the electronic signals in such a way. So these four aspects have to be greatly gone into, and then you see you will have a situation. Hello, I've got off for some reason.
Carry on, Dr. Swamy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, no problem.
We can
So
hear you.
therefore, I'm saying that what you need to do is to make sure that before you get into this cyber world in a big way, as our chairman, Mr. Rajendran, said in the very beginning, this Bitcoin business, we can't get into it unless we know how we can ensure that the bilateral transactions are done in a genuine way, the data is not hacked, illegal people do not, those money launderers and so on, don't get into it. So for that you have to create an establishment. You may Bitcoin and the cyber world financing, it may become independent of the government, but that doesn't mean that the government, if it decides, it will be excluded from doing anything at all. The government has to ensure that the cleanliness of this is maintained. So in that context, you see, I would say that when you are talking about digital security, not only a cyber, you have to have a clear concept as to what it will encompass. Then in that, what should be allowed and not allowed, that's what I call as a scope. And then a clear understanding of the developing threats, because you may not be able to discover a threat for all times to come. You may get new threats, new viruses, like in the medical world, you're getting new viruses. You can get new viruses to disrupt the system. And that I don't think we are giving much attention to. We are looking at these fast ways of dealing matters. We have still not been able to manage the bank transactions, which is the most elementary thing. So much money laundering goes on through bank transactions, but we don't have a data. Again, Mr. Rajendran said, we haven't done any original research. We are relying on it. Mr. Bill Gates, who made his name producing software, but today he is here basically to see that your own independent medicinal or pharmaceutical base doesn't develop any further. We have already become the largest producer of vaccines, something that worries them. And they have been hell-bent to bring in what those vaccines which are patronized by Mr. Bill Gates and his establishment. And you will find that if you go back for vaccination for smallpox, all the things which were not cleared by the United States FDA, Food and Drug Administration, were experimented in India during the period of 2005 to 2018, at least I know. I don't know whether it's continuing. I did raise it. There are guidelines for these foreign drugs to be brought into our country, foreign technologies to be everything. For instance, Aadhaar card. I mean, Aadhaar card, for all its essential, is something which anybody can manipulate. We have absolute Nilan Kani and Mr. Bill Gates. They have not allowed this to happen, where you put in strict what I would call as disinformation measures. So smallpox, the vaccine for smallpox to be given to Africa was experimented in India. How many children died? How many children died in other things? The Home Ministry has got it. People from Home Ministry came to me when the BJP came to power. But Mr. Jaitley was very supportive and nothing could be stopped. And ultimately, they took away the to the power of the Home Ministry that time when it was under Rajnath and transferred it to the Information Broadcasting Ministry to give clearance or not to give clearance. So I'm saying that don't think that if I discover something, it can be easily implemented. There is a deep state, as it's called, which has international connections. And they move in, and then if anyone opposes them, they discredit them. They run a campaign. They do all this morphing and produce all kinds of evidences to show that he is connected with Mr. X is connected with gangsters. So, if I may use an old example, that is the Pandora box. This cyber digital world is a Pandora box. Please don't open it until you have completely, you are able to completely be on top of it with all those 4 measures I said, which I'll repeat again: countermeasures, unauthorized access prevention measures, risk assessment, recovery strategy once it happens, and finally your antivirus development. If these things are done, then digital security is a risk worth taking, according to me. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on this topic.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Thanks for being crisp. So now we will go with some of the questions that has been raised by our viewers in the YouTube channel. So I'll probably discuss with you, including some of the questions I also have. The first and foremost one is, we are talking about digital Atmanirbhar. Now, of course, earlier Mr. Rajendran was talking about, everything else comes from foreign, but only data is ours, and then we call it as Atmanirbhar. A classic example is GSTN. Thank you very much. Thanks to you, because of which the data which was supposed to reside outside our country, which could have been manipulated. In fact, India wouldn't have owned that data. So you ensured that the Indian government, when I talk about Indian
everybody's bank account, yes.
Yeah. So, so it was yes, Rajendran sir, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question to Dr. Swamy. Can I ask it now? Can I interrupt? Am I interrupting, Ramesh?
Okay. No, please go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Swamy must be knowing about the CIBIL, the Credit Information Bureau of India Limited. It was owned by all the banks about 10 to 15 years back. All the banks in India having the ownership stake of 5%, 10%, 15% and all that. CIBIL is a very huge database containing millions of data of all the borrowers in India, maybe even a small credit card borrower, right from about 1,000, 2,000 rupees up to even crores of rupees. It has the complete loan details. Gradually, what happened over the year, CIBIL was taken over by an American private company.
Yes.
Now, the Indian bank, okay, so I'm very glad that
Even
Data
the
Swami knows
TransUnion.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Knows
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah, TransUnion. Data Swami, in fact, I don't think I need to even complete my question. You are there right at it. You are there right at the bullseye. I'm very sure you would have guessed where I'm leading to now. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
what is the level of data privacy, data secrecy? Why should RBI let it happen? So, but even now, when I had an occasion to speak to many RBI officials, they do say that RBI has a surveillance mechanism. We are inspecting the data. The data is safe. They are also bound by all those things. Like everything is there. But somehow personally, I feel very bad. In fact, I feel highly. I mean, what can I say? I feel highly insecure that crores and lakhs and crores of Indian data is now lying with the private company of US. You want to say? Do you want to add anything to it, Dr. Swami?
No, I remember that when this Aadhaar card thing was being floated, I was in the United States, and I'd gone to somebody's house where a young girl was a computer expert came, and she said, this Aadhaar is a very dangerous thing because it can be accessed in America. I said, really? What way? She says, for example, if I want to find out your bank account, I can use the access to Aadhaar card to find out. So, therefore, she sat before me in the computer, and she didn't. Of course, I didn't give my my name. I didn't even have a Aadhaar card at that time, and so she had somebody, and she phoned that person and said, "Can I, access your thing and show it to Dr. Swami?" He said, "Yes, no problem." And she produced the entire bank, the account, this amount in it, and the expenditures, the checks drawn, everything. By how much? For just paying $5 as a what is it called, a tariff for doing this operation. Once you pay $5 by your credit card, they will send you a number, and then on that number you think, and then you get access. Now this happened in the United States. In the case of the UID, whatever that was, this fellow who's now the head of the Infosys,
Yeah, Nandan.
Nilekani, who was a candidate against our BJP in the Lok Sabha in 2014. I went and campaigned against him, brought it all out, and he lost, and lost pretty badly. But the thing is that this data has been given for processing to an American company in the United States, which used to do work for the CIA, but then it was blacklisted, and despite the blacklist, it was given to that company. How is it that all these medicines which Mr. Bill Gates brings for testing, how does it prosper? People don't stand up. And if anyone does, they run a campaign against him. And it's very difficult for me to be everywhere. I can take care of it if somebody tries some funny tricks with me. But ordinary people, ordinary officials, if they comply, life becomes very comfortable. If they don't, it becomes miserable. Now, how do you expect people to stand up? This requires, it's now, where does the buck stop? It stops essentially with your voter. The voter should not expect any money or expenditure in an election, but then they expect. If you don't, they will say, I've been elected to Lok Sabha 3 times. Every time people used to tell me, are you in the contest? Because there's no poster of yours, and you're not spending money, you're not distributing. So I said, don't vote for me. But still, fortunately, I got elected twice from Bombay and once from Madurai. And Madurai amount of money that DMK spent on me is unbelievable. Of course, all the DK, everybody was against me, but I still won. So that was in 1998. But the fact is that it becomes very difficult without a large amount of money, and which has to be hidden from the election commission, because now I'm going far afield, but I'm telling you that cyber world is going to be the most difficult monster to control. So don't go fast. Get your things all in place, and see that all the necessary precautions and all the things that I've highlighted in my speech is done. Otherwise, you will be a victim of any foreign country which has a superior or a head start on this area, like for example China, which demonstrated what they did to you in Bombay, and claimed so on their television, that we have that power to do that. And now they have grabbed our territory and sitting there. So we are now in an area which is not only science, but it's politics, economics, society, existence, medicines, everything. And therefore it's such a big subject that requires much greater attention than we are giving today.
Ramesh, one simple small query. Can I just add one thing? Dr. Swamy, you have always been an irresistible optimist. Okay, you always look bright for India. How do you see the future of digital India?
Oh, future of?
Digitally empowered India. Digitally empowered
Oh,
India.
it is going. It is come. It's going to come. You are talking about our being superpower in software,
Yes.
but our software is all blue collar. We still don't have a design. We haven't produced, as you said, for our computer, any of the programs that were independent of Microsoft and others. So in that context, you see, I would say that we will come because our people have brains, and they demonstrate that in America with guys. And now today, Google, Microsoft, all these, so many people, Indians are heading it. They can't, if they were in India, they won't be able to head it because somebody will block them. But that merit for which the Americans, when they want some work done, they want some business done, they don't care a damn about whether they like you or don't like you. They put you there till you deliver. And therefore, India has this young population. Our average age of India is only 26, whereas for China is 35, Americans 37, Europe 46, and Japan 50, average age. So as the youngest population and a huge younger population, you educate them, we will dominate this cyber world. See, and it has to come because this is progress. When you look back, how much today we are saved on postal activity because of internet. You can instantaneously your message getting across continents and reaching people. Isn't that progress compared to what it was? So therefore, digital world is something that we have to move, but we have to do it in a very, very careful way, especially artificial intelligence. According to NASA, artificial intelligence ultimately will store knowledge only when the world adopts Sanskrit. I don't know whether you've seen that in their journal of artificial intelligence, and not recently, a long time ago. Now it's accepted that a computer language, most computer client language is that of Sanskrit. So, I mean, we have a heritage and we should work on it.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Swamy, if you look at the past attacks, so one side you were speaking about Chinese attacking our digitally controlled electricity grids or whatever it is. Apart from this, if you look at it, the Pulwama attack or any other attack, right? So that also has a cyber link. For example, it might even be a case where a soldier has been targeted. Let's say through whom this information has been extracted.
Yeah. Absolutely. Why am I against S-400 buying S-400 anti-aircraft missiles from the Soviet Union? Because the entire electronics for that is from China, and if that comes here, the Chinese scientists will have to be, or engineers will have to be invited whenever we want to service this S-400. That's why the Americans are making such a big to-do. They say we can't give you advanced weapons unless you cancel your contract with the S-400, and if you don't, then we will break with you. You will not be part of the Quad. So I don't know. We are only been postponing the date of taking delivery, but the moment we take delivery, the Americans will turn against you, and then you are at the mercy of the Chinese, because the Russians are essentially junior partners of China today, because Russia is a bankrupt country and the Chinese give them a lot of money. See, by neglecting Sri Lanka, what has happened? They have given over Colombo port area to the Chinese, the most scenic part of Colombo, because they are unable to pay the loans which the previous government had taken from the Chinese, which was then the Chinese were giving it freely, like in the Haman Tota building, which India refused to assist in building. And India has also given some loans and so on, which we have been demanding it should be paid back. So the Rajpaksha had asked for rescheduling the payments, but we didn't agree, and so they got the money from the Chinese and paid us our dues. And now the Chinese have got a grip. They've got a grip on Nepal. They've got a grip on Bangladesh, on Bhutan, on Myanmar, now Sri Lanka. So what's left? Only Maldives. Maldives has been taken over by the Chinese, by the Americans. So and of course Iran and Pakistan and now Afghanistan. So I mean, the cyber world, when the Chinese expertise, artificial intelligence, and that they are geographically surrounded, so you can be attacked by a cyber attack from all these things at the same time. Not only from China across the border, but it can be from all. It's a we're in a dangerous world. But I have seen in the past so many times when people said India's gone case, like in the emergency, people used to say Indians are not fit for democracy, and particularly in South India, they used to say that we need some dictatorship, so on. Ultimately, Mrs. Gandhi called an election, and she was defeated not by the educated South. They voted for Indira Gandhi. Don't forget that. It's the North, UP, Rajasthan, Bihar, all these illiterate areas which didn't allow even one Congress MP to win. And Indira Gandhi herself lost the election with her son. So I am very confident about our people because of the past civilization. And we are the only surviving civilization. 45 civilizations have been documented by the UNESCO. Only one is a continuing civilization. Everyone has broken up. Whether it's the Romans or the pharaohs in Egypt or in the Middle East, the Zoroastrian civilization. All this has been broken up. The Greek civilization, Italian civilization, all have been now, what they have today has got no connection with the past. Ours is the only continuing civilization. That's because no matter what the thing, we never gave up the fight. May have been, very conservative in fighting, or we did, some tactic which would take years and years. Sometimes we had to, but ultimately 600 years of Islamic rule and 200 years of British imperialist rule, we overthrew them. So therefore, I am not worried about the future. I am worried about how much of the future we will waste rediscovering what we. That is all that I am concerned about.
That was really nice. Sir, I have a small doubt. Can I, Sidram sir, can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Doctor, see, the future is in cyber warfare. Everyone knows it. Are we ready for that? Are we digitally educated about that?
No, there's absolute today no systematic thing. But you see, look at ISRO. We were the cheapest producer of satellite launching rockets. And what happened to our scientists? A cooked up story was done, where the Kerala police participated, and prominent scientists were called as people who were engaging prostitutes from Maldives, discredited, ruined. Of course, now they have been rehabilitated by the Supreme Court and paid, but they have lost so much of their life. They were the top scientists. The problem was the United States at that time felt India is now become the cheapest producer of launching satellites. So it's only a matter of time that countries will now, instead of coming to the United States to launch satellites, communication satellites, they'll go to India. And it was happening. So to wreck it, ISRO was damaged this way, and we haven't still recovered our position for the last 25 years. So consequently, you can be assured that the day you start moving on the cyber world and the cyber technology, you will find sabotage from agents embedded in our own country. And so you need very, very strong politicians. I have seen in our country, the moment you are a strong politician, they say, no, you're difficult to get along with. You need people who are difficult to get along with. Not these rasgullas who can adjust to anybody and close their eyes to any crime that is committed.
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah,
one minute. A little more deeper to the subject alone. See, everyone has started using internet. Social media pages has grown to the extreme level, without knowing the vulnerabilities we are using. The government also allows. Government also allows. See, for example, take a Play Store. You see for the educational apps, you see for the illegal apps like phonographical apps. This lies more when compared to this. Don't we have the fear our younger generation will get addicted to this, or we are spoiling the younger generation? Because
I
they don't
agree,
know
but see, the vested
parents
interests are
under
so strong. No. A problem today, I must tell you very frankly, is that we have a highly centralized government. One person makes all the decisions. There's no committee, there's no cabinet form of government in operation except for routine paperwork of clearing something. Now that's the dangerous part. BJP had come to power basically to ensure that our culture is protected, and it is under siege. But it can't be done by one person or giving orders to the bureaucracy, because the most complicit part of our country today is the bureaucracy, because they are the least concerned whether they're going to get elected or not. They have a fixed tenure, and it is guaranteed, especially for IAS and IPS and IFS. And then they find that if the minister wants to be corrupt, they'll get a share of it. And there's never been the few bureaucrats who stood up and said, no, you can't do this, you can't undersell something, they got into trouble. Even Ms. Chandralekha, when she was with this part of the Jayalalitha government, she had opposed the SPIC denationalization and giving it back to Chidambaram's cousin, whatever his name was. And she suffered an acid attack because she had opposed it. So we have a situation where fear has been built into people who can say, no, you can't do that. We need now from the top, not from the bottom.
Yes.
People to be people who can inspire people at the lower levels to speak their mind and not be afraid of telling the truth to the politician.
I think with this.
Yeah, Ramesh, just 1 second, Ramesh. Can I just add something? Dr. Swamy, you are making a mention about the good efforts of ISRO, right? You are praising the efforts of ISRO scientists. Similarly, is the case of DRDO also, who also come out with a brilliant thing. I mean, he
Correct,
was a
correct.
non-DRDO guy. Okay, now think of the IITs in India. Even a union minister about a couple of years, 3 years back, I think she spoke, stating that government is spending millions, lakhs of rupees on IITs and IIMs in India. But the staff composition who are working in DRDO or ISRO are very prestigious government department, even including CDAC, Center for the Development of Advanced Computing, who have come out with our own operating system called BOSS. Like even CDAC, these prestigious Indian institutions are not, they don't have IITs or IIMs of India. So why are these IITs, IIMs not joining our own government departments?
But somebody has to take the initiative. No, they can't do it. The politicians should understand that this is what you have to do. You just see what the National Science Foundation did for research in the United States. We don't have one. You know, the amount of we are spending for education is now 1.5% or something. Long back, Kothari Commission had said it should be 6%. Research and development gets hardly anything. Countries are spending 5% on research and development of their GDP, not of the budget. And they have come up, the Chinese have come up by that, the Americans came up with that. In economic growth, it's not more capital and more labor which produces fast economic growth. It's innovation. It's like previously going by road, and then you're going by railroad, and then you are now flying. And similarly, previously your inventory had to be checked by counting how much is left, how much is sold. But today the computer gives you on a daily basis without even asking, just by a program. So we have to have that mindset that the scientific research in fact in general, but scientific research is extremely important. And therefore, it should be given a high priority. The Ministry of Science and Technology, never has had a minister who knows something about research. And if somebody good comes, he is given 3-4 other ministries and this one in addition, because it's not considered prestigious. So what the British did, they said, be a good bureaucrat, be a babu. And all this independent thinking is dangerous. And if you do, then you will go to the Andamans like Savarkar had to go. And no independent thinking. How many people are hanged in Andamans? You should see the numbers. So therefore, and there was just no rule of law as far as the British were concerned. They brought in the Jamindari system so that they can collect revenue and impoverish the agriculturists, so that they will not have the backbone to stand up as they did with Rani Jhansi in 1957. All these have to be undone. And we are today using English only because the Americans have adopted English. Otherwise, if the English had been there and it was no other country using English, we would have given up English long time ago, maybe learned German. But we are continuing in English, not because the English did a great favor to us, but because the Americans became number one, and Americans using and knowing English became a plus for going to America. So, but those are adjustments we can make. I'm not saying that we should go back to the past. I'm saying that please don't forget that protecting this country is as important as discovering new things, and to see that there are lots and lots of people who would like to see a big country like India with a second largest population in the world, maybe very soon the first largest population in the world, is kept down, and is done systematically by capturing your mind. And that's where this internet matter comes. It weakens you, and therefore there needs to be an awareness, and the awareness must come in amongst the politicians, and that can only come if the public expect the politicians and elect them according to that basis. Take time, it will happen, but at this time, this is the weakness we have.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Swamy. I think with this we wrap up the session. So, Lokesh Babu, I want you to deliver the vote of thanks.
Yeah. Sir, as being a CEO and a founder of Poshi Tech India Private Limited, I thanks for all the speakers. I may like to express my sincere thanks to our chairman V. Rajendran sir for his excellent speech as usual. No way to thank him personally. And the next speaker, Madam Chandralekha, for highlighting the points and making us aware on the digital world. Last but not the least, nowhere compared to least, Dr. Subramanian Swamy for his outstanding speech. As we all know, wherever the topics he chooses, he stands as a master and leads the topic. As usual, he has done the same thing. I thank him personally for the excellent points highlighted for us. So, just to add a few points to all the conversations, as the doctor says, Pandora's box is in all the links, not only in a particular one, in all the links they have. So people should be aware of the link they click. Before they click, they should be aware of. And they should also know there are not one or two cryptocurrencies which is available. It is more than 4,000 cryptocurrencies which has been highlighted in the search engines and they are actively available. And people are losing their money, a huge amount of money in doing cryptocurrencies. At the same time, on the other hand, now due to pandemic situations, students have started to be addiction in the internet, where parents should take control of the their children and giving the time limit reduced to that. By knowing the vulnerability, they should see what exactly the child is doing. That is a small information to be passed as a technical person. And at the last, safety lies only with our mindset. So each and every individual should have a separate guideline for their safeties. Be safe. Thanks for your all your valuable comments and speech. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, special thanks to VHS team for doing the technical support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. With this, we conclude
Right.
this program. Thank you.
Thank you.